Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hey everybody, Davenport here on Alternative Public Radio International, and we are coming to you live tonight from our old standby platform, TalkShoe.com. While the station is down for repair, and I do want to report, well, maybe I shouldn't break this news early, but we are getting our SEOs done as we speak. I hope, I'm crossing my fingers, but I think we are getting our search engine optimization done as I speak. And boy, let me tell you, have we waited for this. Man alive, have we waited for this. All of you know that it cost anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 to do it right and not have some jackass just started on the computer do it for you. So we're having the real deal done, and I'm not going to tell you all the details behind that, but we are getting our SEOs done, and that's going to open the Google gate to hundreds of thousands of people. And I don't even think we're ready for the bandwidth and what's going to happen when that happens, but we shall see. And we're just thankful to Phil, we will say Phil, for getting that done for the station. I want to make a couple of apologies. I generalized today on the Muslim population, and so sorry for that. My God, did I get the emails, the PMs. I'm not saying that all Muslims are terrorists. I am saying that Islam is a cult, and I am saying it's a very dangerous cult, and I will stick to that till my dying day, because I'm probably better read than most of you and have researched more than most of you have, because you sit around and play Facebook games all day, and you're on social media to talk to friends and family, and you really don't understand foreign relations or international relations. So don't come down on me too hard. I did apologize publicly for that, though, because of some of our Egyptian Muslim friends. I apologized. But I'm going to tell you right now, Islam is out to get us, and they're going to get us, and they are getting us right now as I speak. And Canada is going to Sharia law. Germany is going to Sharia law, and many of our cities in the United States are going to Sharia law. Women can't even walk the streets. American women can't even walk the streets without being molested in 3 states that I know of here in the U.S. So I predicted this 5 years ago, and you all said that I was on drugs and I was crazy and I was a hater, and now you're starting to get a dose of what reality really is. So that being said, I want to welcome my guest. Charles Decker Jr. is on with us tonight, and I want to welcome my co-host, Glenn Sutphin. Glenn, how are you doing?
I'm living.
Charles, thank you for coming on with us tonight. I'm so happy to have you on. I know you've got a lot to say. This all got started with me listening to your Facebook Live, and I was intrigued by it. I was really interested in what you had to say. I didn't agree with everything you had to say, but I was really intrigued by your passion and your energy and your forthrightness toward the people and toward the children of this country and around the world. So, Charles, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this before we move into the main context of what our discussion will be tonight, kind of how you got interested in all of this.
Sure thing, Kyler. First, before I start, I want to thank you. I want to thank Glenn. I want to thank all the listeners that are listening now and may listen in the future. I appreciate it. If anything touches you on this show, please share it out, get the information out there. What I'm going to share tonight is information people need to hear, need to know, and really need to understand. Kyler, I do appreciate the fact that you and I agree to disagree at times, which is good, but we still have a solid friendship, which is awesome.
Yeah, we do.
So to expound on what Kyler asked me, to give people a bit of a background, I was raised for 10 years in the child welfare system in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was in it for a year when my brother and I were put into a foster home, where I found out many years later another child had died 10 months prior to him and I arriving there. My brother and I only lasted in that home 13 days. Because on the 13th day of being in that home, that foster mother murdered my brother and shattered my left arm. Fast forward to 1981, when I was able to finally get myself completely out of the system and away from the system and start to research my brother's death in trying to get information on it. I didn't realize it was going to be a 30-year odyssey. It took me until 2011 to locate records about my brother's death, and then it has taken me from 2011 to this very day to make attempts to get those records released to me. I will get my records. There is no doubt. I do not know how to quit. I do not know give up. But that death of my brother and other experiences I had in my latter childhood and my teen years led me in my adult life to make a decision, either to use it as an excuse to do bad or use it as a reason to make a difference in the lives of children. And I chose to use it as a reason to make a difference in the lives of children, not only in my home country of the United States, but across the globe. And I've been blessed to travel up into Canada and to speak via live stream in several other countries around the world. So that's a brief synopsis. I hope it was enough information. If you need any more, just let me know, Kyler.
No, that's fantastic. I'd forgotten about your brother being murdered. I'd forgotten about that. You and I had talked about that months and months and months and months and months and months ago, and it just slipped my mind. That would make anyone want to dive in and get information and do research and get behind this thing and kick some ass and find out what's causing all of the mayhem and chaos out there that's going on with families right now and abuse and everything like that. So right now you're involved in a couple of organizations, is that right?
Well, I founded the International Child Abuse Prevention Task Force. That is currently in defunct status because when I ran out of my money, I couldn't find financial backing to keep it going. I am anticipating having that up and running again very shortly. If you need me to expound on what that was and what it will be again, I can. And I also founded... Do that, because it's so damn hard to get funding right now for anything. I can tell you from firsthand experience working with nonprofits up here in the Northwest and all over the world, people's wallets are tied together with a string right now. Well, and when you add to that my experiences, Kyler, in this attempts to fundraise, when you add to that, unfortunately, there are so many people out in social networking and legitimate nonprofits who aren't doing the mission that they're claiming to be doing, and who are getting funding, who are collecting monies, and have not done it. And people are now gun shy. And when someone comes out that's real, that's genuine, that has a true heart for the mission, and can show accountability, that 90 cents of every dollar donated to the organization will be utilized directly for children's lives. It won't go into any other program. It will go directly for clothing, schooling, medical needs, courtroom needs, whatever that child needs, and to help that family stay together. That was what the International Child Abuse Prevention Task Force original, and we'll go back to its original mission, was to find a way and create programs where children weren't removed from their family of origin. We do understand that there are times in life when the children may need to be removed from one or both of the parents that they were birthed by, but we were making attempts, and we're very successful with several, to keep the child or children within the family structure for several reasons. One of the main reasons was so the child doesn't, well, actually the main reason was so the child didn't go into a child welfare system, which in my eyes, generally speaking, and I've studied it in Canada and I've studied it in the U.S., I've traveled into Canada many times studying the CAS up there, is a child unwelfare system. It's a system that has gone from being in what the, in quotes, best interest of the child is what they like to utilize, but the reality is it's the best interest of the wallets of those running it. And unfortunately, the children are the money makers for the people that are running it to keep themselves in business. The concept behind the ICAP task force, in addition, I abbreviated it down to ICAP, it's just easier to say, also was to use it as a clearinghouse for other organizations to come under an umbrella. And the reason I saw a need for that, and I use this word picture, and it's a bit drastic, but it kind of shows what goes on. You have two different organizations. Both of them run their operation. Neither of them like the other one because of their ego that gets in the way. They forget they're both there for the children, which is why they should focus. So you have one maybe that's strong in clothing and the other's strong in food. But they won't help each other out because they got an ego. You know, the one needs clothing, the other needs the food, and they each have an abundance of the opposite. So the idea of the other portion of the ICAP task force was to bring organizations like that, and I use that as just a simple picture, but organizations similar to that under an umbrella where the task force would then utilize the extras that each had and distribute it via the task force so that those agencies or organizations didn't have to deal directly with each other. So we tried to eliminate the ego, which needs to get gone anyway. If you're fighting for children, like Kyler opened up this program tonight with this, we agree to disagree. We don't agree with each other, but at the end of the day, we agree that there's one thing in common, and that's the fact that we are both looking out for the needs, the true needs of a child, not just the best interest, but the true needs of a child. And a child needs stability, love, care. And the best place they can get that, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, is within the family structure. I know I've gone as far as looking into third and fourth cousins to try to keep that child and or children. And interrupt me anytime, Kyler. I'm going to go into another aspect of this. One of the things that happened to me during my 10 years in the child welfare system was I have a full-blooded sister, and here at my age of 54 and she's 51, we have no relationship because we were separated and thus didn't really come together. Like, we're biologically brother and sister, but we have no relationship because of that separation. And that's another very important factor for me, that we keep these children within the biological family. They can still have interactions with their biological family. They can still learn the history, the medical, whatever it is that's given to them from their biological family. In addition to, I lost my thought there for a moment, it'll come back. It's just, I believe, oh yes, I know, it came back. In addition to, here's a reality that I know from my childhood. And let me say, people are going to say, well, Charlie, what happened to your brother was 50 years ago. Okay, let me tell you what. If my brother's death and the child that died 10 months before my brother, his name was Brent Garcia, were the only two deaths that ever happened, or if there was one a year, which still would be too many, I may not be as adamant as I am, although I still would be adamant because a child's death should never be accepted, especially under a system that is supposed to be designed to protect the children. But folks, if you don't know, by the way, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month in the United States. They also tag on the word awareness to it. And I'm going to say this, and I say it very directly, and I'm razor sharp when it comes to this. If you aren't aware that child abuse is happening, you got your head in the sand. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care what hole you live in, what dark corner you live in the world. You have got to know that child abuse is happening. So awareness does not stop abuse. Prevention stops abuse. Matter of fact, prevention doesn't really stop abuse because we don't have, and I've been in Canada, I've been in the U.S., I can say this very clearly, we don't have a prevention system for child abuse. We have a reactive system that reacts to it after the child abuse happens. I've designed what I call proactive prevention programs that would actually stop the abuse from even happening before it starts, or at least get it in its earliest stages so we don't have this horrendous stories of children and who then some of them grow to be adults with these horrendous backgrounds. And one of the keys to that is doing everything we can. Now, I do understand that there are times that we can't find a family member that would be suitable, that could actually do what that child needs for them. At that time, then we should reach out to the governmental system on a very limited, very small basis. We tend to run to the government for everything now. I mean, and I'm not just talking about child welfare, everything. And we wonder why the government is usurping so much authority upon us is because every time we go to them for something else, we are telling them we don't know how to control ourselves, so will you please control me? People, you want to make government smaller? Stop reaching to them for it. Get back to what I believe is a natural design for a child, the natural design for the child welfare system is the child's family that the child was born into. I realize that children are born into drug-addicted families. I realize alcohol addiction. I realize there's abuse and neglect. But if we can be proactive, and I believe we can be, to get into those people's lives that are going through those things in their adult lives now prior to them becoming parents, we can slow down this hemorrhage of abuse, neglect, and even worse, murder of children. And to go back to my experience with the system, child welfare system, many of them, but I'm going to expound on one. The child welfare system will say, well, we will have supervised visits for the child with a family member, normally one of the biological parents. Occasionally a grandparent can get in there. Very seldom, if ever, do aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, or cousins are able to attend. But in those supervised visits, I've witnessed personally abuse happen. Now people say, well, wait a minute, how's that possible? Well, because for the most part, the child welfare system and the domestic violence system, on both end, male and female domestic violence, don't recognize anything other than physical abuse as abuse. But when there's mental and emotional abuse, I've witnessed a child on a supervised visitation be all, oh, lovey-dovey, hunky-dory, but in the child's ear, they're being whispered to, you should have died, or you should have, I'm going to get you. And the visiting parent or the visiting adult in the child's life from their biological family, again, normally being a parent, is pinching the back of the child's arm or in the child's ear, smiling away, while the person who's supposed to be watching that these things don't happen is just sitting there wantonly, either toying on their cell phone or long before cell phones, just not doing anything because they don't really realize what's going on. And I have proven that if you get the child within a trusting family member's hand, you have more of a chance that that child will be more well protected, because family members know who the bad apple or the bad seed is in their family. And if they have an opportunity to do something to help, they do. Now, why isn't it that the child welfare or unwelfare system, as I like to call it, or I wish I didn't have to call it that, but that's what it is, doesn't look at that? And why is it when family does take up a stand and does come into the child's life, the child unwelfare system doesn't provide to the family? And I'm not saying all of them. There are some that are start trending to assist families, which is awesome. So I don't want a blanket statement all, but a good portion of them, more than less, don't help the family member like they would a total stranger, a foster parent, get the services they need for that child. I mean, it's horrendous. These people are taking on their family member. They deserve the same assistance, but we need to minimize that assistance. Am I making any sense here, Tyler?
Yeah, you're making total sense. Just taking it all in. Been there, done that before. I mean, we've done many shows on this, and I've been with the leaders, so-called leaders out there in this movement, in the family court system movement, in the Rights for Dads movement, and Rights for Moms movement, and Rights for Parents movement, and I've had lots of shows on this, and everyone agrees with you that there should be an umbrella organization that people come under and still retain their independence in their nonprofit organization and still retain their mission statement. They're not going to be managed. They're just coming into an organization where people can share, like you said, access goods and services and so forth, consultations. But, it's very, very difficult to do. We've tried it here at the radio station, and it's failed several times because of ego. People just do not want to give up that ego. They don't want to give up what they think they already have, their 10 minutes of fame on the air or whatever. All I was asking people to do is to come in and bring their show under the station umbrella so we could have one big TV radio guide and people could come and choose what shows they wanted. Plus, it would be a great thing for advertisers when they ask, how many listeners do you have? I could combine all of the show's listeners for the radio advertisers. So We've done what we've tried what you were talking about, and there are people out there right now trying what you're talking about, and it's simply not working. I'm looking at it; they're on my radar. I'm watching them. About 22 organizations. It's not working, and I really feel for you trying to make it work.
Well, let me give some insight on from my viewpoint. I'm not saying I'm correct, just from my viewpoint, my insight. By the way, Glenn, anytime you want to cut in, if you have a question or you want to interject, please.
Glenn, you'll have to bust on in here, Glenn.
Yeah, no, I'm listening. It's very interesting.
I'm a ratchet jaw, Glenn, so I tend to get rolling, and Kyler knows that already. But so, Kyler, you mentioned something a few moments ago in your statement, in the beginning of your statement. You mentioned a lot of different people's rights. There's one group of people that I found interesting that you didn't mention, and that group of people is the children. Everybody is so concerned about their right, the parent right, the grandparent right, the this right and that right. But I seldom hear anybody, the mother's rights, the father's rights. Who's actually saying, wait a minute, hold on a minute. I'm saying, Charles J. Stecker Jr. is saying, hold on a minute, step back. Where are you in relation to the children's rights? Why are you, as a parent, as a family member, as to wherever you are in the biological family tree, why are you not stepping back and saying, wait a minute, I, as a family member, have a responsibility to protect and to stand up for the child's rights? See, we're so busy, and I think that may be, I'm not saying that's the answer, okay, but I'm looking at a clue to what may be the part of the reasoning for such separation and such ego is because, the mother's movement, not all of them, but a good portion of them, are hating the father's movement and vice versa. And the grandparents, who seldom get any recognition in most states in the United States anyway, are busy trying to get their part. And everybody's trying to get their own little piece of the pie. And at the end of the day, they're forgetting the focus should be on protecting the rights of the child. And that is what I focus on. I'm involved in many of those groups. I'm actually not involved. I just keep an eye on them. But I see that if we can get them to all understand and come to unify that are you here for children? Yes. Okay. Let me also say this. I'm a father. From the moment my daughter was conceived, I had no rights to her. My daughter is currently 26. I still have no rights to her. I have a responsibility to provide the best I could for her from my resources, to get her educational opportunities, health care, food, to provide for her well-being. I had a responsibility in those areas, and I had a responsibility to help her become her unique self. We go to these custody battles, and children become property. Children are not property. They're spiritual.
Well, they are property. They're property of the state, whatever state they live in. They are property. They are fully owned by the state when they get a birth certificate. They are fully owned by the state. And Title 18, H.R. 18, is going to make it even worse, and that's getting ready to pass, where the state can come into your home with the police and forcefully vaccinate your child, or forcefully remove your child, or forcefully take away your homeschooling, or forcefully fine you or jail you. So we're getting closer and closer to that Armageddon that you Christians always talk about. We're getting closer and closer to those end times, my friend. People aren't looking at these different bills. And I do agree that children have rights, but it's not about the children. It's about the adults in the real world system. In the real world system, it's about the mom hating the dad hating the mom, and the mom accusing the dad of child molestation, and the dad accusing the mom of adultery, and trying to prove to the judge that one or the other is bad. It's not about the children. And no matter how idealistic you are, Charles, it's not about the children. You might try to make it about the children, and I might try to make it about the children. We might team up to try to make it about the children. It should be, but ice cream cones should be handed out on every street corner too, but they're not. And bubble gum machines should be in every street corner, but they're not. So, you have to be realistic as well as idealistic. You have to be as realistic as hell in this business. and realize that it's not about the children. They're not even allowed to speak in court. They're not even allowed to speak to the ad litem. They're not even allowed to speak in most cases about what they want. No matter what they want, they're not heard. It's all up to the lawyers. You know that.
I agree with you, and I'm saying it's well past time that we come together and understand, and I'm talking about on all levels, political, judicial, child welfare systems, both run by government and private agencies, families. We need to come together and understand we're supposed to be doing this for the benefit of the child, and we're not. And you're right, we're not. It isn't. And I realize
Let me ask you this, Charles. Where in the hell are all of the churches and all of the Christians in this country? Why aren't they standing up, and why aren't they getting involved in this one little issue about the children? Why aren't they letting you come and speak to 35 or 40 or 50 or 60 mega churches about this, like T.D. Jakes or Joel Osteen? Take it to the limit. Take it to TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network. Why won't they get involved in this issue? They're involved in politics. They're involved with Trump. They're involved with Hillary. They're involved with what's going on in Israel. Why can't they get involved in this?
I couldn't agree with you more, Kyler. I couldn't agree with you more, and I wish I had the answer to that question. It boggles my mind. TDJ,
what were you going to say, man?
Yeah, I was going to say, technically, most of them are involved, but they're involved in the trafficking of the children, like Dynacorp and all the rest of them, and the CPS. They're more concerned about trafficking and procuring young children for the pedophile network than they are for the children that are there. I know for a fact.
Charles is going to say that that's not the subject tonight, but it is the subject tonight, because that's something I wanted to bring up too, is the fact that what Charles said earlier is true, ladies and gentlemen. There are millions and millions and millions of children being abused as we are on the air right now. And there was 4,000 arrests made as of yesterday by the Trump Organization, the Department of Justice, and the FBI made raids and arrested over 4,000 people. And most of these people were Top Gun people in the government, high-ranking officials in the government that are having sex with 2-year-olds, eating their feces, locking kids up in cages and treating them like animals, making them eat out of dog bowls. 475 that I'm witness to, who I know one of the agents that went out and picked them up. This is a epidemic. This is an epidemic. This is bigger than Charles even's talking about tonight. This is an epidemic.
Kyler, may I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to say this. You mentioned Charles will say that isn't the topic tonight. Actually, children is the topic tonight, so yeah, it is a topic, and it's that is also something very near and dear to my heart. I was in an orphanage for 2 years, a Catholic-run orphanage, where the headmaster, as we called him then, Father Peter J. Dunn out of Philadelphia, was a sexual pedophile. He was an admitted sexual pedophile, and the Catholic Church hid him under their cloak, like they do all of their priests. A priest is nothing more than a man who took an oath, and he should be held to a higher calling, but they hide them under there. They move them around. They're not judicially prosecuted, and when they are, they get minimal, if anything. What's that?
Right. Yeah, you're right. They hide them. They hide it. Yeah.
Yeah, they bounce them around. I mean, this priest that I lived under, he never did anything to me, but I didn't find out so many years later. 5 of the boys that I lived with at the time I was living there were molested by him. 3 of the 5 to drug addictions and addictions trying to deal with the abuse because no one believed them, because a priest wouldn't do that. Yeah, baloney. I ended up dying at a very young age from addiction issues. 1 I'm still searching for. The 5th one I was able to locate in Iowa, and I'm in touch with him constantly. And him and I have become very close friends. I've helped him. He had a lawsuit. I'm going to leave his name out at the moment because I don't have his permission to share it. But he had a lawsuit against the Archdiocese of Philadelphia for almost 30 years. And I told him when I reconnected with him, I said, listen, I want you to drop the lawsuit. And he said, what do you mean? I said, listen, They had a gag order on them. It says they are continuing the process because they're keeping you quiet. Drop the lawsuit and start speaking. Get it out there. And I guarantee you it'll spin around. He dropped the lawsuit, Kyler and Glenn, and it wasn't but a few months that the Archdiocese of Philadelphia offered him a settlement because he was coming out and talking. Now, he's still talking. He's still healing. They offered him a settlement that was hideous. It was an absolute embarrassment. They collect more money in one church on the Sunday plate than that man got for 5 years, or was it 6 years of abuse by this priest, and then his entire lifetime losing his brother, because his brother was one of the ones that died from a drug addiction because of the abuse. So no, I am, while I claim, I don't claim a specific spiritual following. I tend to lean towards Christianity, but I study many different spiritual beliefs. I have a very free spiritual belief system, and I don't impose it upon anyone else. I think that each of us have a right to have one or not have one. We're each unique individuals. But yeah, and does it happen in other religious systems? It sure does. Is it hidden? Yes, it sure is. Does it need to be exposed? Yes, it does. And does the judicial system need to focus on that and stop looking at these people because they have a collar, because they have some sort of reverend minister, whatever title they have, that they're untouchable. They're human beings that get showers and put their pants on just like me and you. And if you and I did any of these things, we'd be in jail.
And we also need to briefly mention the fact that they're sexualizing our children, as you and I mentioned on Facebook Live. They're teaching our kindergartners about dildos and transgender and two mommies and two daddies and blowjobs and sex toys and all these other kinds of things. And, you know, it's getting ridiculous. The culture is getting completely ridiculous. And this is coming. It's a big movement. There's a big movement on to sexualize our children at a very, very young age. If they have it their way, 13-year-olds will be able to have consensual sex here in the next 2 years. So more groups need to be standing up, and I'm going back to the churches. Why aren't these dumb-ass parishioners getting involved? You know, I know. Look, I visit churches. I speak at churches. I don't talk about this issue, but I will. Why aren't they getting involved? It's like they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it.
Because unfortunately... Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Glenn.
That's because they were taught to hide it. You're taught to repress this stuff. It can't happen to you. And you know, I know from experience that it happens. So, and people don't want to hear about it. Oh, that's too horrible. I don't want to hear about it. And that's where it ends up. Nobody talks about it. And then nobody pays any attention.
And it's depressing. People don't want to be depressed.
In addition, in my humble opinion, or actually not humble, my direct opinion, it also would tarnish their spiritual belief system under whatever religion it is. And religions are man-made, not God-made. It would tarnish that. And then they would have to really question whether what they are following is real. And let's not do that, because then I might have to face the reality what I'm following isn't real. And you know, I'd rather live in a fairy tale world of life is beautiful all the time, and yet at the end of the day, you know, their children's lives, and some of them were those children, continue this perpetual motion of horrid acts. Continues to happen to children. They're sold into sexual slavery. They're utilized for a period of time, so they're of no use anymore. And then they're either turned out into the streets or exterminated, you know, murdered.
Now, Charles, why can't someone like you take all of the evidence in hand that Glenn and I are professional researchers by nature? We could gather up 150 articles on what's going on around the world and around the United States on abuse and trafficking and all these other things, and take it to the mainstream media and get them to run you on the mainstream media. Now, we've talked about this before. The mainstream media has turned everybody down. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it because the owners of the mainstream media are involved with the Clintons in doing this out at Orgy Island. So, I mean, if you could get some mainstream press on this, That's the key to getting your word out about family members taking in children. That's your simple message you're trying to get out. Have you went after the mainstream media on this at all?
I've reached out to mainstream media on many things, and this being one of them. Not as in depth as what you're offering, and I'd be willing to take that information and give everything I got again. One of the struggles I have currently is I'm not geographically close enough to anything with transportation to get to any. I'm up in the mountains of Pennsylvania. I have my house for sale. I'm going to get back either to Philadelphia or over near New York, and but I still have a lot of contacts. But they run from it. They flee from it. It's like why? Because the churches are supporting them. The churches are, it's a vicious cycle, and someone has got to get in there and throw a cog on the wheel. And I'm willing to lay my life down, and I mean that with all sincerity. I'm willing to lay my life down for these children, because that's who they need someone, and I don't need to be the only one. Go ahead.
Now, what are you considering children? Let's define this a little bit and take our time with it. What age groups are you talking about? Because I've got people up here that are 11, 12, and 13 years old that are beating the hell out of their parents and their grandparents, and they can't stand them, and they want to choke them to death, and I'm right there with them. I want to put my hands around their neck and choke them to death too. These bastard little kids, violent little kids. What age groups are you talking about?
Do you think a child of that age actually, I think that's a learned behavior. They're mimicking something that they saw. Children are
I don't
mimicking.
care what kind of behavior. I don't care what kind of behavior it is. I see it firsthand up here, because I work with the juvenile department and the juvenile court up here, and we work with the mentally ill. We're on the boards of directors for the mental health, and so we're right in the smack dab middle of all this as peer support. So, yes, let's just don't even talk about those violent kids that we want to strangle tonight. Let's talk about your age group.
I didn't say don't talk about them. I want to say this. Has anybody taken the time to find out why those children are acting in that way? What may have caused them to act that way?
We're doing the best we can. We have a mental health system that is broken to pieces up here, and we're losing our budgets right and left. We're losing our psychiatrists. We're losing our peer support. We're losing our counselors. The program for youngsters budget's been cut by 30%. So we've got a problem with mental health up here. We've got a problem with family support up here. You're talking about it. And I was going to ask you something else too, and bring it up and let you kind of analogize on it. There's different forms of abuse. There's different types of abuse, and there's different types of ways to raise kids. I don't see it as abuse if the parents are having a party and everybody's drinking beer and they're smoking a little pot on the back porch and somebody's playing the guitar and the kids are running around having a ball in the swimming pool. I don't see that as abuse. Some people do, but that happens so frequently up here in Hippieville where I am that it's just epidemic. Kids grow up so happy and so cool in those kinds of families that are hippie and open. What do you call abuse?
Well, first of all, what you just described to me wouldn't be abuse. Okay.
Okay. Good. Good.
I want to say this off topic a moment, but just you had mentioned a certain substance. Marijuana is a natural plant, grows from the ground. It should have never been illegal. I've stood up for that. I will continue to stand up for it. It's ridiculous, and the amount of families that have been destroyed by the government system that comes in and separates the family because of something that's a natural plant that grows in the ground. Why don't they make tomatoes illegal and lettuce illegal and everything else that comes from the ground then? So so what you described there, no, to me that's not abusive at all.
Real cool kind of people we got up here. Real cool kind of families we run around with, and all their kids are healthy as hell.
Right. No, what I'm talking about now, there's also there's a difference between abuse and discipline, abuse and boundaries. We've come to this place in the world now, or at least in the culture in the U.S. and in Canada, my experiences up there, where any kind of discipline, proper boundaries for a child's life is all of a sudden labeled abuse. Because if a parent loves their child, and I'm certain the majority of parents do love their children, You have to give them boundaries. Otherwise, you're going to have what we're getting in our society now, a bunch of brats who think they're entitled to whatever they say they want and how they're going to get it, and it's wrong. To me, that's abuse. If you're not giving your child boundaries, if you're not giving them proper discipline, you're abusing them. Because
well,
you're
here
not
in the Northwest, here in the Northwest, Charles, here in the Northwest, you cannot even smack a child on the shoulder. You cannot even smack a child on the shoulder. They will send CPS out the next morning, and this is 2 cases that I'm looking at this week that I'm working with personally. And you cannot lock them in their room. You cannot tell them to go to their room. It is getting ridiculous. It is getting ridiculous, and the state is causing these kids to say, I have rights, motherfucker. You can't make me do anything, and I'm quoting my neighbor. You can't make me do anything. I'll call the police and have you put in jail.
And that's absurd. That's absurd. Now, I will say this. For me personally, because of the way I was raised, I made a choice when I became a father not to utilize physical force of any type. My daughter's 26 years, I've never laid a hand on her. Just because I know how I was raised, and I know from understanding and studying of it that those of us who went through a lot of physical abuse, I figured if I open that door to myself, it may ramp up into a uncontrollable place. So I chose to do a different route. I'm not saying that some kids, hey, go. I'll go to the just out of the Bible for a moment, and I know it's in a couple of the holy books per se. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Children need redirection. A whack on the tail every now and then because they're acting in a way. That's not abuse to me. That's something that
not at all.
Redirects the child. That redirects child. But you're right. It's abuse. I mean, if a parent, I've heard parents in stores redirecting their child in a direct, firm manner, and I hear someone else saying, look at how abusive it is. I said, that's not abuse. That's a parent who loves their child enough to say, hey, you're acting out of line. Right. You need to straighten up, or when you get home, you're going to go to your room, or you're going to have a consequence. You're right.
Right.
It's gotten insane.
Glenn, what were you going to say, Glenn?
Yeah, part of the problem is the society that we're brought up in anymore. If you even look at the child wrong, that's abuse, but the child can mouth off and smack talk to you, and it's like, oh, well, ha, ha, ha. No, I've never really hit my child. We had a one-hit rule. You spank them once on the ass and send them to their room. And my kid hated that more than if I beat on him, because if you keep beating on the child, all you're reinforcing is your anger on that child. And after one hit, it's not for the kid, it's for the parent. You're taking out your aggression on the kid, where you spank them once, send them to their room, let them think about what they did, and you go cool down, and then come back talk to the child.
I believe that the state is purposely turning the children against the adults. That's what I believe it is.
I agree with you, Tyler.
Yeah.
They are. Look at the millennials. That's where we get the millennials from, because nobody can talk to them. Nobody can tell them what to do, because I got rights. You don't have rights until you're 18, really. I mean, legitimately. Right. And that's part of the problem with the children.
I know I sound like a tinfoil hat wearer when I talk like that, but I do believe in some strange way that the state is turning our children against the family structure.
That's part of the agenda that they're running.
Let's look at least from my life experience personally. I agree, and I think that, and I'm going to step back. In 1994, I went through a divorce, and prior to my divorce being decreed, I asked the judge, could he please send myself and my spouse to family counseling in order to preserve the family? And he told me that was not a possibility. He couldn't order either one of us if both of us didn't want to go. Yet, as soon as the divorce was final, we both had to go to parenting classes on how to parent as a single parent. And I said, how backwards is that? You won't say I have to go to keep my family together. I have to go to counseling, but you now can order both of us to have to do this. And so you're encouraging, the separation of family. And now 23 years later, we see what's going on. You're right. They are encouraging children to turn against their parents. They're encouraging children to run to the government. The government's going to help you. The government ain't going to do nothing for you but take control of your life. And these people don't see it. They just keep going, oh, they're going to give me this. They're going to give me. Nothing is free. Everything you have given to you comes with a price.
If they can divide the family, they can divide and destroy America at its base root.
And they're successfully doing that, sadly. And we need. And you're right. Those who claim spirituality of any type, stop being freaking doormats. Get the heck up. And if I'm hurting any of your feelings, oh, well, get rid of them. Because I'm going to come at you straight. I am a spiritual person, but I'm going to tell you what. We have laid down too long. We have become these, love and understanding. And no, it's not. It's ridiculous, people. If you claim God is your almighty power, then tap into him and step up. Don't be afraid. Put your life on the line. I will put my life on the line for a child. I have done it. I've stepped in the middle of situations where most people would have stood by or walked away and put their head down. It's ridiculous. And, we have a bunch of, you said it, it's sad, but we have a bunch of bratty kids. And you asked me, I didn't get the answer, Kyler, what is my definition of a child? From my perspective, a child, based upon what legalities say, is any child that was from birth, the moment of birth, till 18 years old. When the government I don't know who chose 18 as the number when they're suddenly adults. I know some 11-year-olds that are more adult than some 30-year-olds.
Well, so do I.
Yeah.
So do I. Yeah.
Somehow 18 became the magical number. At midnight, you're 17 years old, 23 hours and 59 minutes, and then a minute later, you're a child. Then a minute later, you're an adult. Well, I don't know who created that. It should be based off of maturity level. I don't know how they would fix that, but anyway. So my terminology on children is any child that any person that's from birth to 18 years old, because that's the way our laws read. But can that expound? Yeah, it sure can. If you have to me, it's not a concrete number. I think it's their mental state, it's their intellectuality, and things like that. So.
Right.
Well, now they're telling us that children are up to 35 years old. Look at the dreamers that are coming in. So, it's all fucked up. I mean, sorry.
We've got we've got boys sucking mama's titty at 19 on the internet? Yeah, we do. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, yeah. Well, I mean, it's disgusting, and we've just to go on another portion of this topic, we've effeminated masculinity. When a real man stands up and takes a position for his child, all of a sudden he's a violent person. Well, maybe he is, but at the end of the day, if he's standing up for his child, he's a man doing what he's supposed to do: protect, provide. Yeah. And we go, don't do that, because now you're evil. You're a what's that word they use? Chauvinistic.
Narcissistic.
Give me a break.
Chauvinistic. Yeah. Male chauvinist pig.
And all this, I want our listeners, people, you guys are going all over the place. Everything we're talking about, in my opinion, is all in the interest of children, because all of these different entities that we're speaking of are all entities that are directly involved in the children's life.
My listeners listen to this show because we are always all over the place. That's why they tune in. So, yeah. Charles, will they let you come and speak at any churches, or have you tried to go and speak to some of the larger churches about this issue?
I have reached out. I haven't gone to the larger churches. I've reached out to smaller, local churches, and my biggest problem is going into churches is I see the hypocrisy in them, and I call them on it, and then I'm asked not to come back.
Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. I've learned the hard way. You can't do that.
Yeah. That's a guaranteed out.
Yeah. You got to stick with the program and kind of go in like a sheep, and roar like a lion when you get in there about your issue, and use some scripture out of the Bible if you can to back your position up, But you should really go and speak, and another good place to speak is at the library. They still welcome free speech at the library in most libraries, and they have a room where you can go and you can speak, and they'll advertise your talk, and you can go. And I've told a lot of people about that, and they've called me back and said, "Oh my God, Kyler, this is unbelievable. I'm speaking at the library every week now," And
no, I didn't know about that. I'll have to check my local library and see if they actually have that. Our local library actually was donated by our local assemblywoman, Pennsylvania State Assemblywoman. So I'm in personal contact with her. So I have reached out to her. And asked for help. And so far, the phone hasn't rang. And when I was living in Philadelphia, I reached out. You put it so tough to these pastors. You make it sound so dire and so nasty and so dirty and so horrible and so violent and so urgent that they can't refuse your talk. They just can't. They'd be stupid to refuse your talk. Well, it is. It is, and then it is violent and vile, and I don't know why. The ones I've spoken to, maybe because I do come in there and just when I go visit the church a few times and I see things and I call it out. I need to maybe cut back on that, but I can't help myself.
You do.
If you're claiming God and you're doing ungodly things, I call you on it. That's it.
Well, you know me.
I do too.
I have to learn to shut up. I have to learn to shut up and be quiet if I want to get something done. I have to play the game. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe I'll have to be the wolf in sheep's clothing. come in. Once I'm in there, I may not get invited back, but at least I was there to get the message out.
Have you talked to any of your representatives concerning this matter and written some letters with some proof and some facts and some research?
I've talked to my local representatives here where I'm currently living, and when I was in Philadelphia, I talked to everybody from the local city councilmen to the senators to the congressmen to, all the way up to, mayors, everybody else. And the one answer I keep getting that stays pretty stable, it's probably the answer that I would say is 75 to 80% across the board. Charles, you keep doing what you're doing. You're making differences. So I'm not going to be able to do anything if we don't work together. And I need you to get me in here so we can open these people's eyes to what's going on. Right. So, yeah, and that frustrates the bejeepers out of me, man. It's like, don't tell me to keep doing what I'm doing and you're not going to get behind what I'm doing.
Your local...
Well, you're also in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're in
Pennsylvania doesn't do anything. Hidden Valley Condos is up in Pennsylvania, and you can't get anything done. And the people that you do contact are all disbarred lawyers. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of disbarred lawyers they've got practicing law up in there. So.
Well, you have people sitting magistrate seats up here in Pennsylvania that never went to law school. They got voted in by the local populace who said, "Okay, we'll make you our local magistrate," but they have no idea what the law is.
Well, your local mental health association also has a consumer position for you to sit on the consumer board, and they deal with the juvenile court, and they deal with the adult court, and they deal with adult seniors and disabilities, and they deal with peer support and psychiatry and big pharma issues, and they deal with community issues, and they welcome your presence there at those boards. The VA also has a board position open in Pennsylvania for consumer like yourself. Your mental health board has a consumer position open for you. Those boards are very powerful. They report to the state. They write policy for the state. And you can sit on that board as a member of the community. And there's another place for you to go.
Could you, after the show, send me some links so I could locate, or at least maybe some contacts so I can locate those people?
I will do that for you tomorrow. Yes, I will. I surely will. Yeah. Because we're on all the boards. We're on the boards up here for consumer positions, and we weld a lot of power with the state capital, and we write a lot of policy. And we get a lot of things done. And those consumer positions are more powerful than board positions. They want to hear from the consumer. They really do want to hear from the consumer. And
I want to make this commitment right here live on air and hold me accountable to it. That information is given to me. I will act upon it, and I will get myself on as many of those boards as I can. And I'm committing that to it right now on air. And like I said, hold me accountable to it.
You will be happy. You will meet a lot of wonderful people who are connected in the community and nonprofit directors of all types, and you'll be able to hang with some of the big wigs, some of those who really know what the hell's going on, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Do you belong to any associations of any kind at all, Charles?
Well, I did belong to a bunch of them. I was a member of APSAC, the American Professional Society on Abused Children. I was a member of ISPCAN, which is the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. I was a member of, and I can go on and on. You know what I found out? They're interested. I do. They're interested. From what I've been to their conventions. I've met with their boards. I sat in on things, and I mean, I'm interested in putting all these agencies out of business because if we don't need them, if we're not having children abused and neglected, we don't need them anymore, or worse, murdered. And they're more interested in their statistics and numbers in the next study. Well, we got a 3 to 5 year study. I said, do you realize in that 3 to 5 year study how many children are going to die, how many children are going to be abused, how many children are going to be neglected? What are you doing for that child that right now, as we're speaking, is getting abused, is getting neglected, or worse, murdered? Let me do something. I was at one conference where they had these checkboards. It was a death index conference. I was at a meeting, and they had these check marks on the board for how many children died. I said, excuse me. I said, can I have a moment? They said, sure. I went up to the board and I started writing names next to the check marks. I said, you are looking at this. These check marks are inanimate objects. This one's Susie, that one's Bobby, this one's Jerry, this one's Ann. These are children's lives that you just have check marks. Today while we're standing here doing this, what are you doing right now? Children don't have 3 to 5 years to wait for another study so that you can put it out there to see about another study. They need help immediately. What are you doing now? And you know what the answer I got? I didn't get anything. Well, when we get the study done, I said, you know what? So you're not going to do anything for the child that needs help right now. I can't. So I stepped away from those organizations. They just wanted my money each month and my membership dues, and
you're just like me. You're just like me, Charles. You're just like me. People are scared to see you coming. They throw up in the back of their throat when they see you and I coming.
let me share. Have you guys heard of the CASA program? I've heard of the CASA. Okay, let me share my CASA experience with you. So I moved back to Philadelphia in 2008 with my purpose of locating my brother's information. I said, I'm going to do this quietly initially. I'm going to come in and I'm going to infiltrate the system. So I went in, I became a CASA. I was sworn in by the head judge of family court, and I never got a case. So I called them and I said, why haven't I gotten a case? Well, their excuse was, you didn't get this paperwork, that paperwork. And I said, you guys got everything. I sent it to you. Whatever. I know why I didn't get a case, because I was too strong, because I threatened their positions. They were afraid that I was going to take their job. Listen, I didn't want their job. I wanted to do what we were supposed to do, go in and truly be a CASA and a GAL are supposed to be the voice of the child in court, but they're not. They're the voice of the system that tells them what to say, and they don't stand up for kids. And and someone told me many years later, when I reached out to someone that was in the program with me, they said, Charlie, you know why you didn't get it? You were the strongest in the whole class, but you didn't get it because they feared you, because they knew you were going to take them down and you were going to shut down what they were doing, and they didn't want you around.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
And a lot of these organizations also run the stuff too. I mean, I know for a fact that the DSS sent in a pedophile for a CPS agent to interrogate my son and I and my wife. So, they're all intertwined, and they don't want to help the kids. They only want that government funding and that money and that position, that fake position of power to go, look at what we did, and they did nothing. And you're right, they're just a check mark on the board, Yeah,
because
it's really technical. If you want to get really technical, CPS is an illegal organization anyway.
With ridiculous powers that they don't actually own, but society has been groomed to believe that they a CPS worker or a DIFUS or however the initials are in your town, city, or state can knock on your door, enter your house, and remove your child. No, they can't legally. They cannot.
No, they can't. No, they can't.
No, but what has happened? We know what's happened in society, just like what's happened in many other areas. We have dumbed down people to believe that this is actually can happen, and they don't know how to stand up for their rights. They don't know how to, and in them positions, their rights are being violated, and they don't know how to stand up for themselves. And we need to educate them. We need to, and it's grassroots people like ourselves and many others. We've got to get you. All the three of us can talk all day long and can do what we do in our portions and start our little fires. But we need to unite together across the globe, across the northern continent here, North America, and really unify in one voice and one message. And you earlier in the program, you mentioned that, Tyler. You mentioned about everybody wants their own voice, but we need to come with a unified message. We can each have our own way of doing it, but we have to unify because there's strength in numbers, and they're picking us apart left and right. I'll be on a show tomorrow. Glenn and I are preaching this unity thing every day on Facebook, and we're working with a group called the Top Gun 25 that I put together, and I'm going to bring you over there, Charles. It's a pretty cool little group that we've got going, but we've been preaching unity and fellowship and getting together, working together, sharing each other's posts and liking each other's pages and inviting friends to each other's pages. And it's been difficult. It's been months and months in the working, but we're finally getting somewhere now. And I'm very surprised that you haven't started an organization and gotten those other groups under your umbrella. I mean, you, as passionate as you are, you're a little too passionate. You're like me. You scare the hell out of people. They know that you're going to come in and take their position, or you're going to rule the roost, and that's the way you come across, and that's just you, and that's good. Stay that way. Don't ever change. But you and I scare people. I've been this way all my life. I'm not changing now, and especially
no, I'm not either.
When it comes to children, Glenn said something, and I want to expound on that for a moment, because he had a key point. In the fact of what I see going on in the I guess again as I addressed it, the child unwelfare system, I'm watching children's lives being put right back into detrimental situations, and you go, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't to minds like ours, but when you're dealing with greed and money power, as long as they keep that child needing services, they keep the funding coming in to keep the services going. So it keeps everybody in business. They should be trying to drive themselves out of business, but if we did that, oh my goodness, what am I going to do then? Well, then go, I don't know, go spin yarn somewhere. But there's children. I'm going to be on a show tomorrow night with a woman who lost her children. They were sent back to an abusive father who was a registered sexual offender. And the mother had no bad background at all. And why is that? Because the system wants to keep the children in the services so they can keep the money coming in. It all goes back to greed and money.
Yeah.
They don't care about the kids. They care about their paychecks.
There are many people in America that just would not believe what you just said. They would call you crazy. There's a lot of people, unless they've experienced this in the system, they don't want to get involved in what Charles and what Kiler and what Glenn are doing until it's them that's in trouble, and then they call us crying, and then it's too late. The children have already been taken. But, there's a lot of people that just don't understand how many people are being abused, how many children are being abused. There's so many people that just think it's a local thing. There's just a few kids being abused. They don't see the big picture,
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at another area that I touch on the dumbing down of America. I said many years ago that watch out, pedophilia is going to try to find its way to be accepted as a sexual preference, and everybody, oh my God, I was beat up. I was beat up all over the place, and I said,
me too.
I want to be wrong, but I know I'm not. And sure enough, just a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, these universities are coming out and saying, pedophilia is a sexual preference. It's not bad. It's not, and people are grabbing onto it. I'm like, oh my goodness, come on, wake that heck up.
Yes. Yes.
It's being accepted as a sexual preference. It's not. It's disgusting. You know, it just, you know, and then when those of us like us who expose those things, well, you know, I'm not a guy to come out and say I told you so, but sometimes I do. I warned excuse how I'm going to say this, I'm just going to say it. I warned your ass, you didn't want to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
I've been warning people.
You know, now you're trying to. Now the cart's in front of the horse, and you're trying to get the horse back in front of the cart. You should have listened when I told you. Now
you've got people that just can't believe that a country would do something like that, would normalize pedophilia. But you're right. The universities, 7 that I can count, have come out and said pedophilia is normal. And I tend to agree with them to a certain point. I tend to agree with them that pedophilia is normal. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, maybe even millions of years, 7 million years of our history that I know of. And it is normal for a man to get lusty hot around a sexy little 13-year-old in a 2-piece bikini. But now we're talking about pedophilia with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. That's a sickness, and that's a criminal act. But when you're talking about 13, 14, 15, that's what they're trying to normalize. They're not trying to normalize having sex with babies. They're trying to normalize.
They're trying to normalize sex with babies too, mate.
But
if they do that, then I'm going to Mars, because I can't even see that in the wildest.
That's that slippery slope. As soon as we accept another thing that wasn't accepted as the norm, it's that slippery slope. It's going to end up right where Glenn just mentioned. It is. It's that slippery slope. We have to go online.
I'm not even a Christian, and I would have to just turn into one really quick if that happened and they started normalizing sex with babies. I'd be in the pulpit preaching the Holy Ghost tomorrow night.
Right, but look at the slippery slope we're on. I mean, when do we say stop? When do we say, okay, this is where it stops? We've got to get back to some level of humanity and morality, and put a line in the sand, and this does not get crossed.
Well, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. We're at Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah. Well, the eugenicists started all this crap and breaking up the family unit, breaking up society. How do you bring America down? Well, we'll just make it a den of depravy, and there you go. It'll come down on its own, and here we are. I mean, you know, you got Bill Gates to thank for that. You got, you know, his father and all the eugenicists, and this was, you know, and what was her name? Margaret Sanger. I mean, yeah. So all this stuff is progressing, and it's still the same agenda, and it's also part of Agenda 21. So you got to.
There are a lot of horny men and women out there. I'd like to say that. It's my show. There's a lot of horny men and women out there, and there's a lot of horny men that look at 13, 14-year-olds. I'll even look at them if they're sexy as hell, and believe me, I've got some sexy girls living around my apartment complex up here. And when they're at the pool, I have to go read the Bible, and I don't even read the Bible. I have to go find one. I mean, they're sexy as hell. And that kind of thing's been going on forever, and it's going to continue to go on. And millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of men are watching sexy young girls dancing on YouTube, which is totally legal, and buying porn and looking at child porn. So it's out of control. It's out of control, and if it's legalized, then we're really going to be in trouble. A lot of people say, oh, if they legalize it, it'll stop, like marijuana. No, it's not the same thing. If they legalize it, I can't see them legalizing it. I can't see parents turning their 13 and 14-year-olds out in the street for men to molest. I just can't see that.
There's women molesters as well. I just want to throw that in there. It's not all men.
Oh yeah. I know. They go right along with it. Yeah, I know. I know.
There's parents right now, sadly, who are selling their children into that for profit.
All over the world. All over the world, all over
the United States. everywhere.
The NGOs, I mean, I knew crack whores that were selling their kids into prostitution in Dallas, Texas. Crack whores. They do it all the time. Third world countries, they go in there with these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, under the guise of child welfare, and they steal those children, or they buy them from families and they ship them back to the States or wherever, Brussels or Sweden or Germany, to have sex with the elites in the cabal. So what can I say? We live in a very, very we're living in some crazy times right now. And you're fighting a battle, Charles, that I don't know, man. You've got a lot of people for you, and you've got a whole lot of people secretly against you.
Oh, and I know some of them aren't secretly against me. Some are straight out against me, and that's okay. I know how to. I don't know how to give up. I don't know how to quit, and it's going to take me to my last breath. But if if I change one child's life, if I can turn something around in a group of families, if I can start something, at least to change something within a family dynamic, then it's worth all the effort to me. It's worth everything I've done. It'll be a good memory of my brother. It'll be something. But we've got to. If more people like us stood up and started to do something, we can actually have something begin to happen.
Well, the station's yours. All I can say is the station's yours. I have my own agendas, and I work with the mentally ill, and I work with the homeless over 60 up here. We're very strong in the juvenile court system up here. But the station is yours. If you want to come on, I've got a Wednesday night opening right now. If you want to come on and do a show or whatever you want to do, you think about it and let me know. But I am glad that you're going to go try to sit on some of the consumer boards that are open. That's going to be a big deal for you.
I definitely will do that, and I appreciate the offer. I don't want to commit to something because I work a schedule that changes week to week. So until I can get stabilized in my work schedule, I don't want to commit to something and then not be able to come through. I would feel really awful about that. But
have you been fundraising at all, or did you get kind of depressed about fundraising for your organization when you were losing the money for that organization and wanted to bring it back? Have you done a Kickstart or a GoFundMe or anything?
I've had so many. I have a GoFundMe going right now that another organization's doing to try to help me. They have a $20,000. The most I've ever raised on any GoFundMe is $300-400. And that's okay, but it doesn't get the job done. I mean, I need to, what frustrates me right now is I'm stuck behind a freaking computer and a telephone when I need to be out in the street. I need to be getting to these towns and cities. I need to get to these town hall meetings. I need to get to these community centers. I need to get to these block parties, and people need to hear the truth. And in order to do that, it takes, people are, what do you want money for? Well, I spend a lot of money traveling all across North America of my own, buying rooms, buying plane tickets, and here and there. It takes money.
It costs thousands of dollars to do what you're doing and do it right.
Right, and I did it steady for 3 years. I spent into the six figures of the money my father left me when he passed, my biological father. I spent all of it up going out because I was get out there. If you spend your money, people believe more in it. So I did it, and I proved. And guess what?
No.
They don't. I thought about switching to animal abuse because where animal abuse gets a lot more attention than child abuse.
Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah!
10 to 1.
I can put something about a senior citizen being abused on my page, and it gets maybe 2 or 3 hits. We did a test and put something on there with a little dog that had a cast on its foot, and it got 300 hits.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah, I did a little test a few years ago on my Facebook profile. Now, I built my Facebook profile over the last 9 years around child abuse prevention, around standing up for children's rights. So you would think, at the time I think I had like 4,200 people on my social network on Facebook. Right now I have 6,800. But at the time I had like 4,200. I did something similar you did. I put a picture of a child up who was abused, and then a little while later I put a picture of a puppy who was abused up. That puppy got 20 times more comments, more, and I called people out on it. I said, hold on a minute. Now listen, I'm all about helping animals. I appreciate that. I've got rescue cats here at my home, a couple of them. I've rescued dogs in my past, but aren't children just a little more important than an animal? And why is it that you people who have come into my social network world claiming to be advocates for children were more concerned about a little puppy dog than you were about the child? And you know what I got? I got silence. Matter of fact, I got unfriended by a lot of them. But I call out, if you're not real, I'm going to get rid of you.
Yeah. When you call people out, they block you, they unfriend you, they don't want to talk to you anymore.
They attack you, they come after you.
Oh, yeah, and they talk crap on their pages, behind your back, and you can't do anything about it because you can't see what they're doing unless you set up a pseudo page, which I did. And I have a favorite hater who every time a new GoFundMe comes up for me, he puts it out on his page, but he gets no responses anymore because people don't listen to him because I know how to fight back on them now. But so the answer to your question is there's been a lot of people who have done things to attempt to raise money for what I want to do, and the support just doesn't come through. And I thought for certain. I mean, I spent $122,000 to be exact. I have receipts for it in my money in a 4-year period, traveling all across the country, speaking in capitals, meeting with senatorial congressional committees in Washington D.C. I even got to speak in the Capitol Rotunda down there, and I spoke not in front of Parliament, inside of Parliament, but I spoke out in front of Parliament up in Ottawa, Canada. Ottawa, Toronto, wherever. Anyway, I always forget. I know it's the province and the territory in front of Ottawa. I was up in front of the Parliament up there and spoke, and everybody's rah rah shish boom ba when you're there doing it. But okay, now I call you out when I'm done, and you disappear into the woods. Where are you? You're like when you turn the light on, the cockroaches disappear. Come on. There's only a few of us, very few of us. I love word pictures of people that, there's a bunch of people inside a doghouse barking, and one dog steps out expecting the other dogs to follow him because they're all barking about the same thing, and he looks out, and the one dog, he or she, is all by themselves. I was like, where the heck are you people? And that's what I find. People want to behind the scenes go blah, 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 but when I call them out, come from behind your computer, meet me on this street corner, meet me at this meeting, meet me at this, and they don't show up. It's like, well, then get off your computer and stop doing because you're not really real. You feel safe behind your computer. Kids don't need safe. Kids need people who are willing literally to have their lives taken to protect them. And their freedom taken.
I had a friend in Dallas who rescued kids from cults. And he was Devil Buster. We called him the Devil Buster because, man, he was weird. He looked kind of scary. He had a beard, and he was bald-headed, and he had a big, long handlebar mustache, and he was an expert on deprogramming kids who had been he's dead now, by the way, died a mysterious death. We don't know what happened to him, but anyway, he would go into these cults and rescue these kids. Some scary-ass places, too, around the world. He spent all of his money, all of his savings, and all of his inheritance going around the world, and he couldn't get any help. Nobody would help him. Nobody.
One
of
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
One of the things I've found that has helped two people that I know in their movement to help children is, and I'm trying to figure out how they made it happen. I've tapped into resources to find out they were able to get major motion pictures made about their lives.
Wow!
I don't know if you heard of the movie The Machine Gun Preacher.
No.
Well, The Machine Gun Preacher is a guy named Sam Childers from Central Pennsylvania, and the storyline is he was in jail. He was a drug addict. Blah blah blah. He came to a spiritual awakening and realized there was things going on. Sam is known as a machine gun preacher because he travels into the Sudan and into East Africa and rescues the children of the night with guns blazing. And he's still doing it right now.
Wow.
And him and I have spoken, and I said, you know what's sad? You and I could try to do that in this country, and we'd be locked up.
Oh, yeah, you'd be arrested.
Yeah, and we're... Yes, so Sam is doing that. I'm connected directly with Sam. And then there's another person, I don't know if you heard of the movie Antoine Fisher.
Yeah, heard of Antoine Fisher.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Well, I'm personally connected with Antoine, the man the movie was named. He actually wrote the movie. Denzel Washington played in it. and Antoine is able to do. So I'm finding those two are getting some support because they've got their name out there and they're thing in a major motion picture. So I've been knocking on doors to get my story thrown into some sort of movie. I do have one.
Well,
I have a door open. What's that?
What you're doing, Charles, is boring to people. You got to have machine guns blazing and hand grenades going off, and you got to have bombs blasting in air. That's what people are looking for.
I'll be in jail. I won't be able to do anything. It's sad. And Sam and I talked about that. He said, I can't do what I do in another country, in my own country, and it eats at him. He's been trying to figure out a way to do something, and people are so like, the other night I got a rebuttal. A woman who got mad at me because I said, don't call the child welfare system when abuse is going on. Take responsibility within your own family. Oh my God, Charles, you're teaching people the wrong way. No, I'm not. I'm teaching them the way it should be. If there's abuse going on in your family, don't turn your head to it. Stand up and take a stand for it instead of calling the government to come in and take over the children in your family's lives and destroy them. They just, oh my gosh, they're so brainwashed into thinking the government has all the answers. The government has no answers except to their own agenda to keep filling their pockets with our taxpayer dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why the stuff keeps continuing, is because the government's involved in it and not doing anything other than making a profit and turning a profit off of it.
Yep, and people have been dumbed down. People have been, sheep led to slaughter. There's that cartoon from way back in the 70s where the guy, the one cartoon character drew the line in the sand and the other character came across it and it kept backing up. Well, eventually the guy drawing the line in the sand fell over the edge of the cliff. At some point, you got to draw a line in the sand and nobody crosses it. This is where it is, and that's it. And we need people, men and women, to stand up and stand firm on that line and be willing to take whatever hits come at them. And I'm ready. My biggest struggle is I can't get the financial backing to get out of where I am so that I can get out there and travel and show people.
Won't.
What's that?
And you won't. Unless you come up with a hook, you won't. Unless you come up with the right kind of hook, you won't.
Well, I have some people who are influenced monetarily now who are starting to take notice of me. So I'm working that avenue. We'll see where that leads. But I tell them, if you say you're going to help me, I'm going to call you on it. And if you don't, I'm going to call you out loud on it, like I'm going to expose you. So
I'm thinking that big pharma has a lot to do with this, and GMOs have a lot to do with this, and chemtrails have a lot to do with this, and nanotechnology has a lot to do with this, and mind control and microwave towers. I'm thinking that there are a lot of things going on that are dumbing the people down, that are made externally by the government, by science, and I think it's a conspiracy, and I think it's real. And I think that we are dumbed down. There's also university studies that prove how dumbed down America has become and how much more dumbed down it is becoming by the day. And I'm wondering why these elites are not being affected. Are they taking some super pill that's keeping them from being affected? Because I know some of these rich cats, and they're crooked as hell.
We discussed that on an earlier show. It all goes back to Agenda 21. And the elites, they get vaccines that aren't tainted. They get superfoods. They got their own organic gardens, and
you're true.
They don't eat what we eat. They don't like associating with us because we're the peasants now, and we're the new serfs, and it's okay for the serfs to be that way. We'll dumb the serfs down, but they don't realize that sooner or later it's going to affect them too, and then we're all in a world of shit. So,
hey, Charles, you probably ought to think about doing your own talk show too, because with your following, your 6,800 or whatever it is, and with my station coming back online here in May, and my SEOs being done. You probably ought to think about doing your own show.
Well, I appreciate that, and I have been. I just, like I said, my work environment right now, the schedule changes literally week to week, and I would like to commit to something where I can know I can do it every week at this time on this day, And I don't find out until Friday what my work schedule is. Or I don't find out until Friday, and my work schedule starts that Monday. So I got Saturday and Sunday, and then that Monday my new week begins. But,
okay.
And that's why I want to get free from this hourly thing. You know, people say, "Oh, you want to get rich?" Listen, I'll stay in the same house I'm in, drive the same beater car. I'm not looking to build my bank account. I'm looking to have the money to get out there and get this message out there. We need to get it out. And I want to go back to children, because that's what we started this show on for a moment. In the area of drugs, you know, we've conditioned, especially boys but girls as well, them that drugs are the answer. How do we do that? Well, let's look at one area, ADD. You know, oh, here's Ritalin, that'll take care of your problem. And then when that young man or woman, and mostly boys get it, because boys have an innate energy that gets suppressed by the masculinity being effeminated. You know, they wonder why. Okay, now when they're older, they turn to street drugs, or even worse than street drugs, pharmaceutical drugs that they're legally getting that they don't actually need, because it's a system that continues to feed itself. We've conditioned children to say drugs are the answer. They're not. Matter of fact, a few months ago, I went to a psych eval just because I said, you know what, I haven't had my mental health checked in a while, and you know, I believe we all need to do that. Our physical is important, our mental is as well. And I wasn't in the doctor's office 10 minutes. He wanted to put me on Zoloft, and you know, I said, have you done any tests on me? Do you know anything about my physiological person that says I need those? Is my body not producing what it needs? Why aren't you teaching coping skills? Why aren't you willing to, you know, do that? Oh, I got shut down and I was gone and never got another appointment with the guy, which is good, because I just call it the way it is. But, you know, our children, the drug epidemic is being fed, again, by the same system pretending to fight it, because it's another opportunity to control. Look at, what's that thing that they give? They said Suboxone clinics and methadone clinics. I shut one down in Philadelphia. I made the papers for it down there, because I addressed with him. I went to the doctor and I proved, because I had a friend who had been going there for some time. I said, you are supposed to be getting these people on methadone. That's what that clinic was. And the concept is that you bring them in at a certain dose and you gradually lower it over time so that they eventually don't need it. But you don't do that. You keep them on the same dose, because it keeps those prescriptions get written, which keeps the pharmaceuticals in business, keeps the doctors in business, keeps the lawmakers in business, because then they bust them for. I mean, it's a sick system that, while it's pretending to fight something, it isn't. And people keep buying into it, because people don't want to work. People are inherently lazy. And if it means that I have to work to do it, oh no, if I can get it and I don't have to work, I'll do that, please. Well, no, get up and work. Kids need us to work. They need workers out here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy road.
I'm enjoying myself with you guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope our listeners are definitely getting something out of this. You have to be. If you're not, then again, you must be under a rock.
Well, they're gonna get a whole lot more when this hits the main station. And ladies and gentlemen, Kiler Davenport, it is 7:29 p.m. and it is already April the 9th, 2017, and this is our, Sunday night show here with Charles Stecker and my good friend and co-host, Mr. Glenn Sutphin, and we are talking about child abuse. We are talking about family court, CPS. We've talked about a little bit of everything tonight, and it's been very interesting. I hope you all will support Charles Stecker in what he is doing. I know that we will offer him the station, and we will be talking about this issue a lot here on Alternative Public Radio International. And again, I want to say thank you to Phil for doing our SEOs for us. I can't believe we're getting the SEOs done. I just hope he doesn't knock on my door and say, I'm not doing your SEOs. We emailed him the website. We emailed him all the keywords and tag words, and he's supposed to be getting started on it. I'm just hoping that goes through. As many of you know, without SEOs, you are absolutely nobody. You are nothing. You're just in a little mouse cage all by yourself. You might as well have a garage sale with the door closed if you don't have your SEOs done. But most people can't afford it, and most people can't find anybody to get it done for less than $10,000 to $25,000. We were so lucky to find Phil to do ours. So let's just hope that that project continues, because then we'll be a real radio station for a change. We won't be struggling for fans. And then I can really be a smart ass and not worry about running my few 5 or 10 friends off that I have here. But yeah, Charles, we wish you well on all that you are doing, and I still suggest that you keep hitting the churches and calm down a little bit and stop finding hypocrisy there. You know, the churches are the place to go, Charles. The churches are the place to go. Put out the emails to the churches. Write up a good piece. Let them know what you want to do, and just wait for the responses to come in. Look for the zip code. You can do it on the computer. Just zip code, 5 zip codes in your area, all the churches within those zip codes, and bang, put the emails out and wait for the responses to come in.
I will get to work on that. Kyler, are you and Glenn familiar with the book that I co-authored that's selling on Amazon?
No.
I co-authored a book with 2 other gentlemen, Rutledge and Mr. Hoffman. And the core of the book is a play for children, teaching them how to talk about abuse, whether they're experiencing it or someone else they know is experiencing it. But it's lighthearted. We use a cockroach as the bad guy. And the other portion of the book is my brother's story. There's a boy from Philadelphia 10 years before my brother he's known as America's Unknown Child. Rutledge put that part in. And Mr. Hoffman wrote about a little boy from Chicago by the name of Laddie McGee. There are 3 boys who were murdered and to this day have had no justice for their deaths. So that book is selling on Amazon. It's called, I'll put the link in on your pages if that's okay with you, or at least Glenn.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm using that book. I'm waiting. Actually, my copy should be arriving here any day from UPS. I've already got my state representative, Rosemary Brown. She's a politician who I don't know how she got in it and how she stays in it, because she's a real concerned person about people. She's very concerned about what I'm doing. We touched on something about pharmaceuticals and things like that. I also have chronic Lyme disease, which I didn't know I had until almost 10 years after it was finally diagnosed. And I'm working on creating a task force for that with her. So she's very open. She's waiting for a copy of the book for me to take it into her, and she's going to connect me up with local universities here in our area and get them to encourage their theatrics department to put the play on. So I've got that inroad in some places, and I should take it to some churches as well, and maybe get some churches to get that play. But I'll send you both the link to the book so you can check it out.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and we'll get it out on our platforms. We've got about 26 platforms. They're not all made for specifically what you're talking about, but we will get those out on as many platforms as we possibly can. I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I feel like we should end the show on a top note here as we feel good. I know when to end the show. Been doing. By the way, this is our 1575th show.
Wow.
We have done a few shows in our time, I'll tell you. Glenn Sutphin, thank you for being my co-host and my friend and my brother from another mother. I appreciate you very much. And Charles J. Stecker Jr., keep doing what you're doing, and we are here for you day or night, anytime. Just let me know if you need us, and the posse will be there by your side, I promise you, and we will continue to help you in your endeavors and whatever you do. Just keep us in the loop and let us know what you need, and we're here for you, okay?
All right, Kyler, I appreciate that. Please send me those links that we talked about. I will definitely get to work on that. And and Kyler knows this personally. When the chips are down, if you need me, I'll do everything I can to help. You reach out and say you need something, I'll do what I can, including offering my home.
I was almost homeless, and Charles was there with me through the whole thing, and he was watching to see if we were going to be homeless, and he offered me his house, and I tell you what, it made me want to cry. I was so happy with joy to know that I had a place to go and die, not in the street holding a sign out here, as sick as I am. So Charles, thank you for that. You have a heart of gold, and I thank you for being the person that you are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kiler Davenport on Alternative Public Radio International with Glenn Sutphin and Charles Sticker. Remember, whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, and enthusiastically act upon will come to pass, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. This is Davenport, and we are out of here. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Good night.